Good afternoon. As Representative of Peru and current President of the Security Council, we are very pleased to have organized this open debate on how to prevent sexual violence in conflict through empowering of women, gender equality, and access to justice. As you know, Peru is truly committed to the Women, Peace, and Security agenda, and this issue, the prevention of violence in conflict, sexual violence in conflict, is a key element of this agenda. Also, we believe that the participation of women in decision-making is extremely important also to prevent violence, sexual violence in conflict. And we were working for this during several months with SRSG on sexual violence, and we thank very much her commitment, her leadership, and all the work we have been doing with her team. We have a large number of participants today. 70 countries will be participating in this open debate. And we are hearing to all the comments and suggestions. It's very important to make an assessment how this very difficult problem has been improving, or the challenges we have ahead. We have had very important statements from the DSRG, Amina Mohammed, and also from the SRSG, Pramila Patten, and a Rohingya lawyer. I think it's very important, this issue, for the international community, and I would like to ask SRSG, Pramila Patten, to develop on how we organize this open debate and her vision for tackling this difficult problem for the international community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency, and good afternoon. I would really like to start by thanking His Excellency, the Permanent Representative of Peru, for showing so much leadership and for having organized this open debate. Our respective officers have worked for a couple of months, and I'm so much encouraged today to see the statements by no less than 70 member states. This is a recognition of the visibility that we have around the issue of conflict-related sexual violence. I think we have come a long way. My mandate, as you know, was established through Resolution 1888, following a realization that despite all the attention being given to conflict-related sexual violence, it was in fact escalating, and it was becoming almost widespread and systematic. I think a decade later, we can say that we have come a long way in bringing visibility around conflict-related sexual violence, but we are also at a critical juncture where today, as you will note from the speeches of all member states, we all agree that it's time to focus on accountability. That for too long this crime, this hideous crime, has been silenced, that we cannot, we really have to reverse this culture of impunity which has prevailed for too long into a culture of deterrence and prevention through justice and accountability. And since I took office last year in June, I have set out my own priorities, and in line with the vision of the Secretary General, I also think that prevention is the priority, and that it's only through consistent prosecutions and conviction that we will be able to send a strong message to would-be perpetrators. I take a very survivor-centered approach, and that's why since I took office, I have been going out, meeting with survivors and listening firsthand from them, and hence the focus of today's debate on economic empowerment, gender equality, and access to justice. And in fact, survivors that I've met from Maiduguri to Goma, or in Mosul, in Bosnia, they all express a thirst for justice in addition to psychosocial support, economic livelihood. I also think that I'm encouraged by all the statements of the member states to address the invisible driver of conflict-related sexual violence, which is basically gender inequality and discrimination. And as I pointed out during my statement, empowerment is protection. We know that conflict-related sexual violence is not inevitable. I'm very pleased that a lot of focus has been placed on prevention, on the need to address, to take a very holistic approach in dealing with conflict-related sexual violence and addressing its root cause, and also in addressing stigma. And we know the importance of addressing stigma to make sure that these heinous crimes are reported, because we are talking about a crime which remains shrouded in stigma. We are talking about a crime which is the least reported, and we are dealing with a crime for which there has been impunity for too long. I'm also very pleased that there has been a lot of focus on the Rohingya issue, and I really like to thank the NGO working group for having brought a Rohingya activist, and to have been able for the first time to put a face and a name and a voice to a Rohingya person, and I think it's timely as the Security Council prepares to visit Myanmar and Cox's Bazar, and that was, as you know, a recommendation that I made to the Security Council on the 12th of December when I briefed them. I would be very happy to take questions.
Sure. Thanks a lot, and thanks for doing the stakeout. I did want to ask you about Myanmar. It seems like even in your report, the numbers are they're grouped. 32 Rohingya women raped, 30 in another instance. And I wanted to know: is it your sense how far up in the government do you think these things are being ordered? It seems with those numbers, it's not just this is not a random case. This is sort of as a tool of war. And has the government made any movement toward a joint communique with your office? And the other question was, many of the member states spoke about sexual exploitation and abuse by UN peacekeepers. And I noticed in your report it's not there. And I guess I've tried to, I understand you think that maybe Jane Hall-Lutz's office or someone else is dealing with it. But when we ask them about it, they say they're only dealing with the policies and not the specifics. Do you think this is falling through the cracks in terms of actually stamping out? There were just new cases were released on Friday, 6 new cases of sexual exploitation by peacekeepers. What can your office do about it, or what should the UN system do about it? Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Well, with regard to your first question on Myanmar, unfortunately, I have nothing new to report. We are still trying to engage with the government of Myanmar. We have submitted to them a draft joint communique, and we are still awaiting their response. But from the last meeting that I had with the permanent representative, with the change in leadership, he has informed me that it is under consideration. So I'm awaiting feedback from them. And I also want to say that I'm going back to Cox's Bazar next month, and intend to also inform the government of Myanmar of my visit to Cox's Bazar, and to request a visit in Myanmar, especially a visit in northern Rakhine, because in December I was not able to go to northern Rakhine. Similarly, I'm trying to secure a framework of cooperation with the government of Bangladesh. In November, we shared with them, extended to the government of Bangladesh the support of my office. But I think at the time they were very much focused on getting a bilateral agreement with Myanmar. So one of the purposes of my mission to Bangladesh is also to reinitiate discussion around a framework of cooperation that would actually focus on issues of trafficking, especially in the light of the statement of razzia this morning, but also the need to scale up service provision. And I'm very much concerned about the sexual and reproductive health of those 81,000 women whom the Minister of Health of Bangladesh mentioned the number. He gave the official number of pregnancies as at December at being 81,000. And for me, all the early warning signals are present that we can realistically expect that there will be a high maternal mortality and child morbidity rate. And together with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, I'm submitting a paper to the to members of the Council before their visit to alert them on this issue. With regard to your question on SEA and the absence, that the report does not address SEA, you have rightly pointed this out. And if you go through the report, you will see that we have explained in a footnote why we have left it out, because every year, in previous years, we have addressed it. It is through an agreement with the Secretary General that we have left it, because now there is an annual report of the Secretary General on SEA, and for that reason we have cross-referenced the report of the Secretary General on SEA, and we have left it. I think a lot is being done in terms of the zero tolerance policy of the Secretary General on SEA, with the appointment of the victim rights advocate, but the office of the victim rights advocate and my office, we are working very closely, and my office is also working together with OHCHR on a position paper, taking a human rights perspective to SEA.
Okay.
My question is to Ms. Patten. I'd like to confirm that in today's report presented to Secretary General, Myanmar Armed Force was listed in the parties suspected or responsible.
Credibly suspected.
Yes. And is this the first time that?
This is the first time
okay.
that
Can you have comment on that point?
Well, pursuant to my mandate, I have recommended the listing of Tatmadaw, which has been endorsed by the Secretary General. It is the prerogative of the Secretary General, and the government of Myanmar has been informed by the Secretary General of the listing of Tatmadaw. But I do hope that in line with Security Council Resolution 2106, which lays down the roadmap for delisting, that the government of Myanmar will be willing to work with my office through the signing of a joint communique and an implementation plan, which we discussed already in December when I was in Myanmar. We have submitted a draft joint communique based on the discussions that I had with the different interlocutors when I was in Myanmar. And I have been informed by the permanent representative of Myanmar that it is under consideration, and given the new leadership, that they need more time.
Thank you very much. We need to return to the debate that is going on.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.